So look, I can be a bit of a sentimental sod at times. I know that for sure. And people who've watched my channel for a long time probably know, I do get sentimental about things, about pieces of gear and things like that. This particular amp really has sort of got me emotional today, actually. So brief story, if you haven't been on the channel, about nearly 3 years ago, well, April 21, I bought this amp, the Rift Aynsley Lister. And in a way, this amp has sort of been, like for me, a symbol of me playing the guitar. And what I mean by that is I got the amp, I was so excited about it. I plugged into it and I remember I was using my old R9 that I also don't have anymore. And I hit the first note on it and it was like the most incredible moment I've probably had with an amp. And when I watch it back, I've seen that, probably not for a while, but I did watch it back. It's a bit embarrassing, my playing has improved since then, and I'll look back at this in 2 years and I'll be embarrassed by what I'm playing today. That's sort of the point I'm making. This amp was with me for 2.5 years and a lot of things happened in that time. I played the guitar more and more. My channel grew a little bit. I made lots of friends in the guitar community. Not the least, Aynsley Lister, who this is the signature amp for. He in fact taught me for a while. He's been to my house a few times. I've made dinner for him, and then something happened end of last year, well, a few months ago now. I was just wanting to get some other gear and probably, despite what some people think, I don't have endless money. And I thought, okay, I'll sell that. I sold my Vibrolux, I sold my R9, I sold my R0, I sold various things. I've got quite a few regrets, I must be honest with you. Wish I hadn't sold my Vibrolux, I wish I hadn't sold my R9. But luckily I had sold this to one of my closest friends, Stuart at Sunbear. Now, Stuart has been making pickups for Aynsley, and seeing as Stuart knew I wanted to sell the amp, he thought it'd be good for him to have it because when he makes pickups for Aynsley, he can test it on the amp, and he just wanted to try the amp himself. Now, a few months later, well, I'd been around to Stuart's house and we'd got the amp out and I just plugged into it for a second, and honestly, I had like this jolt of like emotional, stuff happening, and I was just like, is there any way that I could take this back off you somehow and just lend it to you when you need it to try out pickups and things? And yeah, I had to swap a guitar for it. So I swapped the Frank Brothers Radar, which was a beautiful guitar that Stuart really liked, and we did a deal and I got this back. Now it's been here for a couple of weeks and I've been so busy I haven't had a chance to plug in, so I just thought I want to do a one take, plug it in and play something and see what happens. So that's what you saw at the beginning. And honestly, I don't always show my true emotions on video because you open yourself up to comments and things, but I didn't realize how many things were going to come flying at me while I was playing that. Some of you will know that my wife had cancer. It started in, gosh, when did it start? May of 22. And treatment was super intense. 24 weeks of chemo and then surgery and then a month of radiation. And it wasn't an easy cancer, and seeing my wife go down like that, well, I say go down, she's still alive and she's free of cancer right now, although we just had a scare. Like, it becomes part of your life, right? Living with this new weight on your shoulders, illness amongst your most loved people. And, my wife is the love of my life, right? This is going to be the soppiest video. And how does it relate to this amp? Well, playing guitar got me through that period. Obviously, my wife and I went to the hospital, I don't know, 100 times. And it took over our life, really. And I'd come back and I'd make YouTube videos and I'd play my guitar and I'd have my friends to chat to. And, Aynsley was teaching me at the time. And, it's not that you always sit and chat about those difficult things with your friends, is it? But like when they're around during difficult times, you sort of bond with people in a different way. And you see which people are going to be around for you and which aren't. I mean, I remember once meeting Aynsley at ATB Guitars when I was choosing my 63 Strat. And this was just after my wife's diagnosis. And we went for a drink at the pub afterwards and we both talked about difficult things in our lives. And it was just like a moment. So when I sold the amp a few months ago, I don't think Aynsley was that happy about it, to be honest. um, he was probably wondering why I've done that. Do I not like it anymore? And it was just a moment of madness for me. It's not something I mentioned on the channel before, but I do have ADHD. I was diagnosed with that nearly a year ago now. And actually being treated for it has really changed my life massively. But treatment can only do so much. And sometimes you do go into a pattern of just needing new hits of things all the time. And I've done a lot of thinking, and actually selling this amp and the Vibrolux and the R9 and things like that I've done, which I see a lot of people selling and buying gear. And I know for some people it's a similar situation to me. You're just always searching for that new hit of excitement, right? It's a rush. And yeah, after these 4 years of being back into guitar and making videos and buying and selling stuff, I am sort of at a point where that rush, doesn't matter how big the piece of gear, just gets smaller and smaller, to be honest. And then you start to think, God, just for the sake of 1 or 2 days of excitement, I sold something that I could have really, got more out of. So that's what this is. I haven't played a Les Paul through it yet. That's the one other guitar that I wanted to play through this. When I first got the amp, I played mainly a Les Paul through it. And obviously I know Aynsley now is a Strat player, and he came round and I said to him, look, I love this amp for humbuckers, but I'd struggled a bit with Strats at the time. So he plugged in a couple of his Strats and took me through the settings that he uses. And yeah, I mean, I love that tone at the beginning. Just to get that out of an amp without any pedals or anything, that is just the amp. It's an incredible tone. The sort of layers of harmonics there, and that is in the room. It's like a visceral feeling. It's amazing. So I needed it back, to be honest. So yeah, this is a short video. I just needed to get that off my chest, really. It sounds a bit silly, but yeah, I really miss this amp, and it meant more to me than it was just an amp, clearly, because I've just discovered that. Sometimes you find yourself, by doing all these things that we do, you like look deeper into what something means, and I just wanted to share that. So I got my amp back and I'm really happy about it. Let's hear it with the Les Paul. And if you don't know anything about this amp, there's been a few videos on the channel, one of which, ironically, I said, if I could only have one amp, it would be this one. I might still stand by that, to be honest. It's an unusual amp. Nothing else quite reacts like it. And so it's something you have to experience, really. But like the separation in the notes, the highs and the lows, the overtones, the way the lows don't sound too low and they still have a sort of harmonic brightness to them, and all this stuff I've talked about a lot before, and it's just unique. So it's happily got a home here, hopefully to make lots of videos with. So yeah, and I've never had so many messages as I did from when people noticed I've obviously got rid of this amp because you hadn't seen it in a long time. I know quite a few people have bought it having discovered it partly through my channel, and obviously there's been other videos made by Aynsley and Rift themselves. But I get a lot of questions from people who've bought the app. Oh, what settings do you use and this and that? And people were like, well, why have you sold it? I couldn't answer that, to be honest. As I just said, it was just a moment where I just did it. So anyway, this is probably a video more for the people who've been watching me for a long time. So let's hear my Les Paul Custom, I think. And that'll be that. All right, cheers.